this government have already gotten proper information, intelligence, that they will not win the coming election. And now anything that can put this country into chaos is something that they can entertain. Unfortunately, it is a government that came into power through people's power, and people actually overpowered the machinery of government of that day. But now they have forgotten that, and they have forgotten that the same power will be used by the people in terms of numbers to actually vote them out of government. And it's going to start in our Karau. So when we listen and follow up what kind of minister and the comments they are making thereof, they are the same people whom we go back to the archives and see their comments when they were not in government. What we are looking for as a country is continuous, consistent. I have said here, Dibal, before, that we need to do away with political inclination thinking, where you suspend your brains completely just because you incline to a certain side. And now you no longer look at things factual. You do not want to listen, or what you want to say is what pleases the master. That one is something that the people of my generation cannot fathom and cannot understand and cannot do. We want to deal with facts. When we say this government has not performed, don't tell us what opposition have not done. What does the opposition have no responsibility of government? You are the people who have responsibility of government. So do not pass the mantle or pass whatever it is. You do what you can. And when we say you have not done enough, accept you have not done enough. So on matters of what the media, freedom and comments by the president himself against the standard, I don't think that was, that was necessary from him. Yes, instead of even discussing the headlines of the standard, just pinpoint what standard have said that is not true, so that at least we can be able to shame them. And I've had FCPA Hezbollah, trying to say that media need to accept when they are at fault. Point out what they say that is not true. That is what is important. Because if we find it, or if we can be able to point it out, then we can all agree that for sure this is not true. But most of those headlines are proper representation of the fact and what is happening. When you have promised something and you've not done, you have promised again and you've not done, how do you want it, the media to call it? So, Dibal, it is as simple as this. When a government cannot perform and is not in a position to perform, they will look for scapegoats and someone to blame from here to Timbuktu and back. And that is what this government is trying to do. So as much as I'm concerned, the week has been busy with surprises from the head of state commenting things that you do not expect him to comment. But nevertheless, our Karao is good, and we are also insisting that it is not bad. The week has been quite busy, and with Orkarao, obviously, the campaigns are still happening. And we are still witnessing a lot of government powers, coming with all manner of goodies, advertising a road and launching it within 14 days, something that has not even that is not even applicable in law. We are seeing things that are both as miracles, as our people are tried, as the government is trying to woo our people towards them. But I'm very, very, very happy to see that people can be able to see through all this kind of dangling that the government is trying to do. I have had an opportunity to listen to, Dr. Mbai, trying to explain the conduct of this government as far as matters, demonstrations is concerned. Dibal, from where I come from, when you see something with your own naked eyes, our forefathers used to say that it doesn't require rocket scientists to be able to interpret what is happening. The conduct of this government as far as organizing violence themselves, it is evidence, what the youths call evidence kwa karatasi, because previously, in the previous demonstrations, goons, armed with machetes and armed with rungus, were walking side by side with police. That is when they were not hiding that they were the owners of those goons. The conversation of who owns goons that have been infiltrating peaceful demonstrations ended with when the police and goons were actually hunting people within the CBD together as one team. We do not need any other explanation of who was the owner of violence that went into the opposition areas. Hiyo tulitik hivi na tukajua ni wao. I'm very happy when the Rigathi Gachagua said that if this continues, people are going to continue losing lives and also losing businesses on the hands of the government that is supposed to protect them. But then I have even seen Murkomen comment in regards to, threats of arresting and putting into prison Rigathi Gachagua. I've heard FCPA talk about affordable housing. And I wanted to know whether he still believes in that particular project. Because this affordable housing that we've been talking about, for example, we have some affordable housing in Karao. There was no demand of houses in Karao. Why did you go there and put some houses that was not in demand at all? Precisely. Nobody ever said that we need affordable housing in Karao. I've had Dr. Hesbon and some people, claiming that the government needs to be, given credit. We have no problem with where they could have performed if there is any. But I need to remind them one fundamental thing, that when this government was coming in power, they had something we called economic forums that went across the entire country. When this manifesto of UD was being developed, it was supposed to be localized because challenges across the country are not the same. They abandoned everything they corrected, and they have been doing things that were never heard of during those economic forums. I attended so many of them. So when you hear people say that we are just criticizing a government, we are actually correcting a government that we actually participated in bringing into power. We knew what they promised. When we talk about Pesa Mfukoni, what is Pesa Mfukoni? Without, and people right now can barely afford anything. I mean, can you stop this, bravado of telling us houses there, railway to Karao and things that do not make sense? The Constitution of Kenya demands that as you develop this country, you must do a public participation so that people can participate in giving you things they need most, so that you can prioritize those particular things. That's not what this government does. They are just on top of vehicles making the declarations on what they want to do and even promising roads that are not on budget. What kind of government is that? I've seen the roads that have been promised in my place that have not on budget. Even on this particular budget that we just finished, they were not put, but they were promised. So I don't understand why when you talk about facts and when you point out lies that have been told by the government, some people want to still brand you as just a dissenting voice that is not. We are talking from a point of reference. A point of reference is how the government came into power. When we are talking about compensation, and now we are proudly saying we have released 1,400 people have been compensated. What can compensate the loss of life? Can you please explain to me who can point a grave and actually be satisfied by saying I have 500,000 shillings in my pocket, I have 1 million shillings in my pocket? Why do we have to make people to shoot people in the first place? Those are the things we are calling out. Those are the things we are saying cannot make sense at all. So let's be really, really honest with each other. What is the country looking for? When I like Hesbon, you can give us facts on, numbers and things like that. Is that what we bargained for? Like that, when you hear us talking about, when you hear us talking about lack of development, I come from a constituency in central Kenya where people want to paint that development has so much, where we have less than 50 kilometers of road in an entire constituency. I come from there. Less than 50 kilometers of road. But as we speak with you, we have promises of about 500 kilometers. They have not even delivered 10 kilometers of those. So what do you want us to tell of that? So when we are looking and telling the government, in fact, if the government has been good enough, they would be taking enough time to listen, rather than not to defend. Because when you listen, sometimes even the person who criticizes you most, they have a solution, and you didn't have it. So we have just some dudes who are blown out by power, and they cannot listen, and they cannot take anything. So that is what is happening, and we are not, we are not practicing blanket condemnation. We are just saying this government does not fit the bill. and it needs to go.